If he's Barry Sanders with more receiving skill, then they should do whatever you can.
It's all about the evaluation. It comes back to
kidnap
the
Past two drafts, Ezekiel Elliott went 4th to the Cowboys. Last year, Leonard Fournette went 4th to the Jaguars. Yet, amidst all of this, the sort of average number of carries for running back seems to drop by the year, and we keep hearing about how running backs don't matter. Now Saquon Barkley is rumored to be a top 5 pick, could be the first overall pick. So Mal, make your case for why Saquon is the guy that should buck the trend.
So I think there's a larger question there, which is what is even the trend, and do we quite understand the trend? Because there are sort of conflicting trends. Like on the one hand, number of running backs taken, average draft position, as you noted, in terms of actual NFL production, carries, how the carries are spread out. All of that is leading to the view that running backs are declining in value. Yeah. How long the careers last, how long the peaks of those careers last. But the last few years, we've seen, again, an uptick in spending high picks on elite running back prospects. And not always, but often, those picks working out. You already mentioned Fournette, you mentioned Ezekiel Elliott. Go back 1 year prior, Todd Gurley, top 10 pick. He's maybe the best running back in the league. So the counterpoint is obvious, which is Le'Veon Bell, 3rd round pick. Kareem Hunt, 3rd round pick. Alvin Kamara, 3rd round pick. Dalvin Cook last year, 2nd round pick. He might have been, if he had stayed healthy the full season, the best running back in that class. I think you have to look at someone like Saquon Barkley, north of 5,000 yards from scrimmage in his Penn State career, 51 touchdowns from scrimmage, unbelievably effective as a running back, capable as a pass catcher, produce as a kick returner, and say, are you just assessing what he can do as a running back, or are you assessing what he can do for you as a player, period? And if you believe that he is the best player in the draft, then you shouldn't look at it through the lens of the position. You should say, this is a guy who I think is superior and has the highest grade of anybody on my board. And the teams consistently that say best available player, the guy I believe in the most, we're taking him, those are the teams that win.
Right. I think this whole notion that you can't take certain positions get thrown out. Aaron Norvell just made $16 million as a guard, and now, there's a standard rule you can't take guards. In the 1 year when Chance Warmack went in the 1st round, and so did Jonathan Cooper.
Don't tell Robert Mays.
You can't take guards that early. But I think I think we have to take a step back. You have to evaluate the player as a standalone entity compared to the other players in the draft. So if Saquon Barkley, let's just hypothetically, is a 7-5 player, and Bradley Chubb is a 7-4 player, and the next running back is a 7-0, you better take Bradley Chubb because you can at least get another back, perhaps. Yeah. Because the difference between the next defensive lineman is significant. Barkley is a 4-down player. He can impact the game in so many different ways, and he can change the flow of the game. And if you got him, you got a good player. The problem is draft management. You only get a 5-year contract. Backs, we know, don't really last that long. So I think you got to be able to compare it to other positions and how it evaluates and where your draft management is.
The last 2 teams that have taken a running back in the top 5 have probably regretted it in hindsight. I think if you ask the Cowboys right now, would they rather have Jalen Ramsey? Yeah, they'd rather have Jalen Ramsey. He went 1 pick after Ezekiel Elliott did. I think Leonard Fournette, when he was out this season, Bortles was still efficient. The offense was still running at the level it was. Fournette had that one incredible game against Pittsburgh, but other than that, he really didn't put his team on his back and actually, win a game that the rest of the team didn't contribute in. There was none of that. I think that the running back matters in relation to the passing game. You mentioned Gurley and you mentioned Kamara and McCaffrey, who I think is not a great between the tackles guy. In fact, he should probably never run between the tackles ever again. But you can throw him out of the backfield and he can be a contributor. There's a lot of guys like that. But I, again, think it's just a value thing. I think it's not only you can get these guys in the third round or the 4th round. There's so many teams who win with a non-first round running back. I mean, even look at Devonta Freeman. I mean, these guys can be found anywhere. However, the free agency market is what really interests me, because the market has become so depressed for running backs. You can get any running back basically for, what, $6-7 million against the cap? The cap is $173 million this year. You can go out and spend a fraction of that on a Deion Lewis. You can go out and spend, Jerick McKinnon, is he overpaid? I don't know. He's going to be the 2nd biggest cap hit, but it's only going to be, what, $10 million? That's fine. That's half of what Brandon Cooks is going to get next year. and you're going to get the second highest paid running back. I mean, and by the way, Bell's not even signed for next year, so as of right now, McKinnon's supposed to be number 1.
Right.
And next year, by the way, you might be able to get Le'Veon Bell in the open market if the Steelers this up.
But it's all about it's all about the passing game. It's really all Gurley's impact. He's a great run. Gurley's impact screens and his ability in the passing game. Fournette's not as effective in the passing game. That's why
you can't draft him.
That's why McKinnon went there, and that's just where Barkley. You can make the argument.
Right. If you know, say there's some sort of magician that tells you this running back is going to be as good as Todd Gurley, how high should that player go in the draft?
Yeah, I think Sonny Michel at Georgia is a really good back. I think Chubb at Georgia is a really good back. I think the gap between Barkley and the other backs are somewhat not as far as people make it out to be, but there is a little bit of a gap. And then it comes back to draft management. If I can get this back at the top of the second and still get a defensive lineman, do I not take it? Would I like to have Barkley? Yeah, but
now we're about to have a stroke.
Well, no. All good points. I just think that there are two separate conversations. There's how high can you or should you justify taking a running back, period. And then there's the Barkley conversation. And I think the fact that the Barkley conversation is separate is in itself an indication of how special he is as a player. There aren't, to your point, like that many running backs anymore who you would say this guy is a 4-down player. When we talk about running back value, I think we all have a tendency, reasonably, to discuss longevity and how many carries you have in your legs. And especially for a guy like Barkley, who was run really hard in college, that comes up with Alabama defenders a lot because Nick Saban gives those guys so many carries and the mileage on their legs when they get to the pros. I will defend Minkah Fitzpatrick until I die. The fact that you're not actually even attempting to opt in to a running back or really any player for a decade or beyond anymore, doesn't that change the way you assess the value of a running back? It's okay if he's only with you for 4 or 5 years. That's all you're counting on in the first place.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But then you look at what the Eagles did, and you realize that the reason they went out and they got Jay Ajayi for a pick is because they just want their running back to be making $800,000 a year. They view Jay Ajayi and that running back position as a non-value position.
They also won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles.
Yeah, because they know that you can spread the talent around.
But the one thing about Ajayi, though, here's where I think when you break down the Eagles, the back told you what they were going to do before they got Ajayi. When Blunt was in the game, it was run. And so, because Blunt can't pass protect. Barkley's, we don't evaluate these. Fans want to evaluate the backs in the order of running, catching, and then blocking. And in the NFL, it's blocking, catching, and then running. The impact of the back in the passing game is really what makes the quarterback better. And if you think Barkley is that guy, if you think Barkley's Barry Sanders with more skill in the open, with more skill as a pass receiver, then he's worth the 4th pick in the draft. He's worth the 2nd pick in the draft.
If he's Barry Sanders with more receiving skill, then they should do whatever you can.
It's all about the evaluation. It all comes back to the evaluation. Look, the guy's a 100-meter champion in Florida. The guy's got breakaway speed. He's 228 pounds. He's a freak athlete. There's a lot of things you can do. And you say, well, he's only going to be around for 5 years. Yeah, well, most of the personnel directors probably going to be around for more than 5 years either.
I think there are a lot of good running backs in this draft class. I like Sonny Michel a lot. I like Nick Chubb. I like Ronald Jones. I like Darius Geis. I like Royce Freeman a lot as someone who you can maybe get in the 3rd, maybe even 4th round. But none of those guys has the upside of every single time he touches the ball potentially scoring. Barkley is the only player on the draft that you can say that about.